So, Suzan, this is a very high-stakes operation, isn't it, going into Gaza City, the last bastion of Hamas control. There are a lot of risks. Many Gazan civilians remain there, and, of course, the risk to IDF soldiers as well, and, of course, the hostages, 20 of whom are still believed to be alive. What do you think in your heart of hearts? Should Israel go for a deal with Hamas at this point, or should it just keep pushing on?
Yeah, before answering that question, I mean, my heart goes to the hostage family. Following October the 7th, I came to Israel. And I had the honor to meet two families. One is of Or Levi and Shlomo Mansour. So I understand the hostage family, that they want a deal to any price. But one of the main objectives of the war is to eliminate Hamas. Hamas is standing on its last foot. I mean, the suffering in Gaza is immense because Hamas terrorists are hiding among civilians. So why pull out now? Just finish the job so Gazan could be free, Israeli could be free from this nonsense. And Hamas leadership has constantly repeated that when the opportunity will be given, they will commit another October the 7th. I don't envy the Israeli government. It's really a hard task. You have the hostage family, you have a lot of Israeli calling for a deal. You have a lot of international pressure, and the international media, they have a coordinated attack on Israel, that a genocide is happening in Gaza, that Israeli purposely is starving the people in Gaza. And we all know it's a lie. We all know it's a lie. I mean, if we look at the figures, the population growth in Gaza is steady. I mean, how could you talk about genocide if the population is going steady? I think the Israeli government should go.
You think they should continue?
They should continue.
All right. Ariel, we're getting reports that another deal has been put forward to Hamas, which would involve handing over all of the hostages, no staged, phased deal, no phased withdrawal. What is happening now in terms of the negotiations? Where are we with that?
So officially, there's nothing going on. Unofficially, to my understanding, this is, some Arab media is calling this a new Witkoff proposal. My understanding is that this is an Israeli proposal that was handed to the mediators already last week, if not before that. This would see a 6-month period of cessation of hostilities between the sides, the release of all living hostages on day 1 of the ceasefire. But I don't want to get too deep into the leaks or the speculations, because ultimately we have the families of the hostages who are waiting for every word, every development, and ultimately this escalation, advancement of Israeli forces into Gaza City, an area where IDF officials have told the families of the hostages they do not know where all the hostages are. This could potentially put them in danger. Couple that with threats by Hamas to execute the hostages if Israeli forces get too close, something that we've seen throughout this war. There's a lot of stress on the families of the hostages, but ultimately, going after the goal of defeating Hamas is hindered by the goal of trying to protect the hostages. The IDF is going at both missions simultaneously, and it's impossible to disconnect one from the other, having one impact the other.
All right. Thank you both. Well, part of the pressure on Israel comes from Egypt. And the Egyptian foreign minister has accused Israel of pursuing a policy of ethnic cleansing in Gaza, and says that describing their displacement as voluntary is ridiculous. Badr Abdelati was responding to comments by Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, who on Friday accused Cairo of trapping Gazans inside a war zone against their will. My next guest warns that Israel is underestimating the level of anger in Egypt over the war. Joining us now, Khaled Hazzan is an expert on Egypt and a national security and foreign policy researcher. Welcome to the programme, Khaled. Great to see you as always. So, Israel was complacent before the Yom Kippur War back in the 1970s. It was complacent before October 7th with disastrous consequences. Is it making the same mistake with Egypt, I'm sorry?
Yes, thanks for having me, Laura. Israel has a very serious challenge when it comes to intelligence analysis. So Israel has amazing capabilities. They can find out who's doing what, when they're doing it, and how they're doing it. But I think Israel has a serious challenge when it comes to risk assessment, because usually they look at mostly intent. This is how they make decisions. So they find that the Egyptians, any risk is capability and intentions. So if someone is capable of attacking you, but they don't have the intention, this is where Israel essentially struggles. They always look at Egypt and they decide, no, they're just doing this, to appease their own population. This is just appeasement, but they don't actually have the intention of doing anything. And I think there is a really fundamental challenge that we have here when it comes to this, because you will see that most Israelis, including some of the most senior military officers and intelligence officers, just arguing that it's just not going to happen because Egypt knows it would be essentially destroying its own army and its economy. But that's the same thing we had ahead of the Yom Kippur War. That's the same thing we had with Hamas, that Hamas would never attack because they know that this would be the end. And quite frankly, it seems like Israelis just do not learn from these mistakes.
Well, one thing that is used to support that argument is the fact that just last month, Israel and Egypt signed a $35 billion deal that would see Jerusalem supplying Cairo with gas, a record deal for Israel. But we don't know, do we, if that deal is still happening? Talk to us about that. And also, do you think long-term economic cooperation between Israel and Egypt can thwart the kind of hostility that we're talking about?
So what's very interesting about Egypt, actually, I was talking to some of the most senior and most someone I really trust in Egypt, and he's really, really senior when it comes to this kind of trade between Egypt and Israel. And as you know, this is mostly controlled by the Egyptian intelligence. And unlike what many people said, they said this is an indication of de-escalation. This is an indication that, we have peace for many years to come. And I said this was purely commercial, by the way. And it seems now, and, according to even Prime Minister Netanyahu's reported procedures on this or reported instructions on this, that the deal is being held until Egypt provides guarantees that it's not going to be violating the Camp David peace treaty, which is, again, shows that it's not actually part of any larger or broader bargain that, brings peace and all that stuff. It's completely commercial. Whether it's going to go ahead or not, I don't believe it's going to go ahead, to be honest. I believe it will at least be paused for a while. And the Egyptians are very well prepared with alternatives, by the way. They do not desperately need this. It's great to have, but it would not be completely dismantling them. Just one last comment. Egypt has a lot of confusion because the presidency in Egypt wants one thing. The intelligence community wants something else. So yes, this deal was essentially designed by the former head of Egypt's intelligence, General Omar Suleiman, who wanted, in his own words, to cement peace with Israel through trade. That's not the case anymore.
All right.
We have a completely different direction.
Interesting. What about Egypt's long-term goals then when it comes to Gaza? Do they want Hamas to be destroyed or do they ultimately want them to survive?
No, Egypt does not want Hamas to be destroyed at all. And I think this is not getting any attention from the Israeli media, actually. Despite the fact that Egypt wants Hamas to be somehow, toothless in terms of, carrying out attacks in Sinai and all that stuff and coordinating with terrorists in Sinai, Egypt does not want Hamas destroyed because they give Egypt its last strategic advantage over Israel in many ways, and also in terms of its relationship with Europe and the US. So Egypt gets a lot of aid because it's, it plays mediator. If Hamas is gone, then that's done. And it's a huge strategic value for Egypt. So obviously they're trying everything they can to maintain that relationship and keep Hamas surviving.
So all in all, Israel needs to be more concerned and take the threat from Egypt more seriously, in your view?
I believe, to be honest, Prime Minister Netanyahu already is. We have seen reports from Egyptian intelligence officials actually talking to the Egyptian media and saying we do not now get any more senior delegations from Israel. Whenever, the past few weeks, we're not getting anyone senior from Israel to discuss our, the deal and everything that's happening. So there seems to be some sort of, Israel is in a way overseeing Egypt or sidelining Egypt. And the Egyptians are actually openly talking about this. You have to bear in mind also, Israel has not even responded to the Egyptian-led ceasefire proposal. They haven't even responded to it in many ways. So it's, Israel is already cautious, yes, I believe so. And I like them to be even more cautious, to be honest.
Khaled, great to talk to you. Thank you so much. Khaled Hazzan.
Thank you.